AE, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Let's begin with Dealfish. You know, the first time I saw that, I actually thought maybe you're dealing with fish online. How did you come about with the name?
Well, I joined this Dealfish when the name had already been settled on, but the people who set up the business, MIH Internet Holdings, from what I understand, Dealfish was really selected because it was a sort of a .com type name. So deals on one hand and then fishing for good deals, hence Dealfish. So that's how the name came about.
All right, now let's go to online businesses and what has attributed to this kind of tremendous growth.
In this case, Dealfish was established about 10 months ago from scratch. We're currently a team of about 10, and what we've done is, within a very short period of time, we've built up Dealfish to be one of the top online classifieds businesses in Kenya. And what we've done is basically we've created a platform that lets buyers and sellers interact and actually find the best deal for whatever they're looking for, whether it's jobs, selling and buying cars, renting and buying properties, and everything else in between. The idea is to make Dealfish the #1 destination in Kenya to transact that kind of business.
Okay, now before the business was set up, what saw the need for such kind of a business?
There are many other businesses that have been around doing online classifieds similar to Dealfish for many years. What we've done differently is that we've invested a lot of resources in terms of money, in terms of time, in terms of market research to understand what the needs are, and then rolled out Dealfish very aggressively. As we currently stand, we have over 60,000 products and services listed on the Dealfish Kenya website. We are currently reaching several hundreds of thousands of unique visitors per month. And on average, most users are able to find items that they might want to buy. And we have a lot of business users, people like real estate agents, people who recruit people, agencies, also people selling cars, who are putting their content onto Dealfish and actually finding buyers for them. So within a very short span of time, just 10 months, we've actually seen a tremendous amount of growth in terms of people actually using Dealfish as an e-commerce platform.
Okay, and how was the reception when 10 months ago when you were starting out?
When setting up, there's a lot of skepticism, especially finding businesses who are actually able to benefit from our services. And it's really taken a lot of hand-holding and education, showing the market exactly what the potential is. Because unlike the rest of the world where you have well-established e-commerce brands like eBay or Amazon, in this part of the world, it really hasn't taken off at that level yet. But it's growing massively, and you find that Dealfish is not the only one in this space. So within a span of 10 months, we've taken the skeptics and gradually converted them to using the service to the point where some people like car dealers are selling as much as 10 to 15% of their product through our website. So it's exciting in the sense that you notice that in Kenya today there's about 10 million internet users or so from a recent report by CCK. So with that sort of penetration, which is practically 25% of all Kenyan users, it's not just in Nairobi, it's at a nationwide level, people are online.
Okay, now the skepticism, let's go to that. Why was it brought about? Do you think it's because Kenyans are very averse to change, or is it because online businesses yet have not reached the potential that they're supposed to have reached by now?
I think there's a number of factors. I think in terms of the skepticism, I think we're very much in the early days of the internet in Africa. In Kenya, although we're one of the leading markets for Africa, people are still not accustomed to trading online. You find that many people, for instance, have gone to Amazon.com and purchased books from the internet because it's a trusted, well-known brand. But local brands, local e-commerce businesses are still very much in the early stages. People are very concerned about fraud. For instance, if you're buying from a website based in Kenya, I remember sitting once at a conference and nobody put up their hands to say they'd actually bought on a local site. So we need to deal with issues like trust. We need to deal with issues about concerns about fraud. Kenyans, I think, are generally early adopters when it comes to technology. If you look at M-Pesa, the growth of mobile technology in general in this part of the world, Kenyans are generally early adopters, but I think there's an issue of trust and building a trusted brand that people can actually look towards and use with confidence. And I think for e-commerce to grow and take off in Kenya, you need to have a critical mass of people actually using credit cards or mobile money to transact online. And that's going to take time. We're very much in the sort of the early days of that happening in this part of the world.
Okay, you mentioned something quite interesting about fraud. And now, how do you ensure online security?
Okay, Dealfish, you don't actually handle online transactions. Most transactions are facilitated offline, whether it's via mobile money or wire transfers or cash payments. But one of the ways that we try and manage fraud is that for every listing that goes onto Dealfish, we have a team that moderates the listings. So each and every one of those listings, every 60,000 plus of them that have gone on Dealfish, somebody has had to manually inspect it and identify that it's actually safe before it goes live. Now, in terms of fraud, we don't always get each and every listing to be perfect, but we have had instances where our users alert us when there's a fraudulent user selling a product or service on our website, and then we are then able to respond and stop that from happening. So we do actually try and manage fraud by vetting each and every listing that comes onto Dealfish.
Okay, let's talk about subscription, or how does someone get to list on Dealfish?
Dealfish is 100% free for both buyers and sellers. So if you're looking to sell anything, all you have to do is create an account. When you create the account, you're able to literally add an unlimited number of products and services to sell. We have clients who have hundreds of different products, whether it's a car dealer or somebody with jobs. They're able to post all of that onto Dealfish. Similarly, from the buyer side, again, you just log in and able to look and search to find the offers or deals that are of interest to you. We do not charge yet. Our intent is to probably remain free in terms of listing, and probably down the road we'll be looking more at advertising as being the way that we're going to actually generate income.
Okay, so how do you make money? Because I'm sure you've invested a lot of money, time and resources on this program.
What you find is this kind of business takes a long time to build. If you even look at Amazon, Amazon took many, many years before they turned a profit. And we're using the same model whereby we're basically growing the business very aggressively. We're investing millions and millions of shillings to advertise and market our platform. And the idea here is really to provide a world-class platform that is user-friendly and market it as much as possible to the people who are going to actually use it, the businesses and the customers who are on the internet in Kenya. So down the road, maybe in a couple of years' time, that's when we're going to start looking at actually generating income. But it's a long-haul game. It's a winner-takes-all kind of opportunity. And it requires you to invest significant resources upfront before you can start to actually generating income. Because I think until the point where people actually see the value of what we have to offer, it's going to be very hard to actually charge them for service. So we need to create value, and then when value has been created, then we can charge for it.
Okay, that's quite very interesting, because once people want to set up a business, what the first thing they're thinking about is, I've invested this and this amount, so how much will I make, or when will I break even? And so many times people concentrate on the money that they're going to make, and it's quite interesting that your company are thinking about making money a couple of years down the line. What is your advice to people who are so money-minded at times?
I know there's always a challenge in a business in that you want to monetize your service or products almost immediately, but especially when it comes to something like the internet. And if you look at the global trend, you notice that internet business generally can require significant investments upfront, building a critical mass of users, marketing, generating a goodwill in the marketplace before you can charge for it. And I'd say to people that really you want to have a business plan that allows you to sort of work without worrying about the bottom line for a while before you can move forward. I would say in the case of Dealfish, we're lucky that our principals, MIH, have the resources to keep us moving until the point when we can actually break even and generate income. So I would say create value first, focus on giving people the value that they need, and then it's going to be very easy to monetize your business. Okay.
Now, you mentioned creating a base of users is quite critical for your business, and of course that is one of the challenges. What other challenges do you face?
I think apart from building a substantive user base for this sort of service, I mean, there are many other factors. Internet connectivity is not 100% high quality across the country. In some places, it's not as easy to use. I think internet literacy is also a challenge. Many people are getting online for the very first time, and most of them through their mobile phone. So one of the things, for instance, we did with our website is we made sure from day one that it's mobile friendly, so you can easily access it on a mobile phone. I think also maybe the cost of the internet for certain users may be still prohibitive. So we can't grow as fast as we'd like to, because again, the costs are inherently expensive. So those are some of the challenges that we're facing. But I think all in all, if you look at our progress compared to other international markets and other businesses doing what we do internationally, I think you'll find that we're not doing too bad.
Okay. Now, going to internet literacy, or rather the lack of it, I know sometimes when we're doing our statistics, we might say we have 10 million internet users, but some of this, probably 80% or 50-60% of this are into socially driven kind of internet using. So when it comes to doing business, it's not something that they're quite, they quite know how to do.
I think, yes, a lot of the user market in Kenya is actually, a lot of them spend a lot of time on social media, the Facebooks, the Twitters, and so forth. But what I've also found very interesting is a good number of businesses and even individuals have started using those channels to actually sell product and service. you'll go onto Facebook and actually find people selling shoes, selling properties. And I think what that goes to show is that as much as it's a lifestyle kind of interaction and a medium that people use for social interaction, people actually also, to some extent, driving commerce through social media as well.
Okay, so how many companies between buyers and sellers have listed with Dealfish?
We actually have businesses and individuals in the tens of thousands who've registered onto Dealfish. They've actually opened accounts. However, some of them might be doing singular transactions. You're selling a used fridge or selling a used phone. And on the other hand, we have business users, businesses that have actually signed up, big real estate companies, big resellers of second-hand cars who've actually opened accounts. But we actually have tens of thousands of registered users on our website.
Okay, you mentioned something quite interesting, and that's to do with internet connectivity. I know in Kenya and around urban centers, especially Nairobi or Kisumu City, we have a lot of internet users. But once we break it down to rural areas, is internet being really used a lot?
I think if you look at the numbers, I mean, you're talking about a 25% penetration when you look at the population of Kenya. Fine, a lot of it is probably concentrated in the urban centers of Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, and so forth. But I think a lot of rural areas are also starting to come online. And it's not the scenario you had maybe 5 years ago. I mean, broadband is widely available. I think the mobile networks, the mobile operators are all over the country as well, 4 different players now. And I think all these factors, plus the broadband that came into Kenya a few years back, all these factors really have aligned everything perfectly in terms of growing the market. So I think whereas the argument might have been previously that there was no access except within the cities and major towns, I think now that has changed. I think you'll find that a lot of people in rural Kenya also very much online.
Well, thank you very much, Moses, for that insight. It's quite interesting how internet is changing our lives.
Thank you for having me.
We will continue with this interview after we bring you what has been happening in the business news today. Equity Bank has reported a 52% jump in half-year profits before tax.
In business through the internet, it really is the most cost-effective way of doing so.
True.
If you look at running ads, let's say in print media or on television, for instance, the comparative cost is much lower, and you find that even in Kenya, there are very small businesses using search engines and so forth to actually achieve international or national visibility at a very low price. So definitely, when you look at services such as Dealfish in Kenya, as a facilitator of trade and business, we definitely do provide, small and large businesses an avenue that is very cost effective and also high impact in terms of generating business opportunities. All right.
Now, dealfish.co.ke, I'm sure it's not just, you had mentioned it's around the African continent.
Yes, we're currently operational in not only Kenya, we've just opened up in Uganda earlier this month. We're also operational in Nigeria and also recently opened up in Ghana. So we're currently operational in 4 African countries, both in East and West Africa. We've decided to focus on East and West Africa on the continent. And within the next couple of months, we'll also be operational in Tanzania.
Oh, that's quite impressive. So how's the business compared to those countries and Kenya?
Without a doubt, right now in Africa, we started out in Kenya and Nigeria for obvious reasons, both in terms of socioeconomic factors, internet penetration, general opportunities. So Kenya and Nigeria actually running neck to neck, although Nigeria has 4 times the population of Kenya. So we expect them at some point to really massively, possibly bigger than Kenya. And you'd find that actually quite surprisingly, Kenya is, in terms of the performance, is actually doing comparatively very well compared to Nigeria. And we expect that probably in the next year or so when we're operational in more countries, that probably Kenya and Nigeria will remain the market leaders or the business leaders for the rest of the countries.
All right. Now, there's this fear that online businesses and online marketing especially is taking over and print media will be left out, meaning there won't be any more advertisements on print media in the near future, and that's where they derive their revenue from.
Yes, what you find is, I think internationally, if you look at the classifieds business, you find that in many instances, a lot of publications were depending on classifieds in print. And currently, you find that many of those businesses are not doing very well because a lot of the revenue and the businesses have gone online. I don't think in Africa it's going to be necessarily as dramatic. I think it's going to be a gradual shift. Most of the populations are still not online. And I think print and digital or online businesses are going to complement each other for some time and work in tandem. But I think going forward, just like the rest of the world, maybe 2 to 5 years time, we'll start seeing some of the same trends that you see in Europe and the US, where newspapers and traditional publications are concerned.
Okay. Now, for the kind of businesses that you list or that get subscribed to your website, is there a limit on what kind of business it should be, or are there any qualifications that an entrepreneur should follow?
The kind of businesses that we have, some of them are really just individuals selling products and services. We also have very large businesses that are also listing with us. So there's no restriction in terms of the size of business. Anyone can participate within the Dealfish marketplace. However, what we do provide, we do have some restrictions on the types of products and services you can put on. For instance, we don't allow pharmaceutical products there. We don't allow pirated music and things like that. So we try and keep within certain ethical boundaries in terms of the kinds of business we let on board. And that sometimes is a big challenge because some users don't understand when we block them. But we generally want to keep it as a very clean, a trusted platform that anyone can use.
Okay. And should the business have been in operation for some time? Or it's okay
really.
even though I started
Not
a business today and registered?
No, we don't restrict
today.
anyone. I mean, it's pretty much anyone and everyone can come on board for as long as everything that they're providing is within our ethical guidelines. But there's no restriction in terms of size or recency of business.
Okay. Moses, what is the potential of market-driven online businesses?
I'd say in Kenya, if you look at it objectively, the potential is huge. It's enormous. I think the bigger challenge is moving people from the traditional mediums of doing business to doing it online. But I'd say it sits easily within the billions of shillings. It's definitely that big. It's going to have that sort of potential. But a lot of what has been done traditionally needs to migrate to the online channel for it to realize that sort of value.
Okay. Now, just let's go to break it down to figures. Say I wanted or someone wanted to start an online business. In terms of capital, in terms of the amount of money and time they need to concentrate on that, how much would it be?
Well, I'd say the barriers to entry are very low. For instance, there are people who actually run their businesses on Dealfish, meaning that they don't even have necessarily a physical presence, but they put their products and services online, and the cost of that is free, like I mentioned before, or nearly free. They need to spend a bit of time on the internet. They need to scan photos and pictures and put them online, but in principle, it's almost zero.
Okay.
So again, the barriers to entry are definitely quite low. Pretty much anybody can participate. On the flip side, if you're a business with more resources, then it could cost you, even millions of shillings. It depends where you want to sit on the curve.
Okay, and maybe finally then, what is the objective of dealfish.co.ke and what are your future plans? How big do you see yourself becoming?
Well, if I was to put it in a very sort of candid way, I'd say that Dealfish really is looking to become almost like an eBay for Africa on a pan-African basis. And in Kenya, again, we would like to be the market leader for that. Going forward, we want it to be the sort of platform that businesses selling new or used products and services can use our services to be, can use our platform to be a substantial part of their, business transactions. So, a business doing maybe 50% of their business through a website like Dealfish. So we have big ambitions. We definitely think there's a market. We are in a bit early, we know that, but we think in a few years' time, we should be an enabler of billions of shillings worth of trade.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that insight.
Thank you for having me.
We have been talking to Moses, the general manager of dealfish.co.ke, where both buyers and seller gets to subscribe whatever products that they do have. It's absolutely free. It has been growing over the years. They established the institution about 10 months ago, and it's really, really picking up. They have gone regional, starting in Uganda. They have a market in Nigeria, and Nigeria and Kenya seems to go head to head in terms of businesses. Well, now let's take a look at today's feature, where drunkenness often takes a toll on an individual and by extension his or her family. Meshach Monari, a farmer in Kisii, knows this a bit too well. The farmer, who was formerly a drunk, has a large farm on which he grows a variety of crops as well as keeps various livestock, a practice that now earns him and his family a livelihood. He would be drunk for most of the day and resort to violence. His wife would get a beating from a man who would cash in any little pay he received at the back counter. Let's now take a look at that story. Thank you very, very much. Yeah.
Right.